Happy Thursday, Vol Nation. We're just going to cut the crap today. We're going to get right into this thing. No intro, no thumbs up, not all that stuff. Let's get right in to this one. This is the one matchup that I've not seen a lot of talk about coming up for Saturday night. I've seen lots of outlets, myself included. I did a video yesterday talking about attacking NC State's 3-3-5. I've not seen much out here. Frankly, I've actually not seen anything on NC State's offense versus Tennessee's defense. Let's jump right into this. So I've looked at the plays, I've looked at the highlights from last week's game against Western Carolina. So I want to go back to the stats for NC State and what we can kind of expect a little bit. And yeah, will teams play better from in week 2 than week 1? Sure. But I'm still going with I've got to see more. So Grayson McCall, 26 out of 43, 18, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. His QBR was only 48.9. That's not very high. Jordan Waters, 20 carries, 124 yards. He got a lot of that late in the game as NC State was under 100 yards as a team going into that fourth quarter. Hollywood Smothers, to me, he's a guy who looks like he gets the ball in his hands. You better watch out. 3 carries, 39 yards. Kendrick Raphael's a guy 3 for 24. Grayson McCall had 5 carries, 16 yards. That's where I was interested in. Kevin Concepcion had 1 carry, -2 yards. So NC State's rushing. How do you combat that if you're Tennessee? Well, your line's going to have to do it. So let's look at some plays here as I go through this. As I've kind of gone through, and it's a combination of where Western Carolina stopped NC State, and it's where NC State got yards as well on these highlights. So if I pull this up, let me find it. Here we go, right here. So right out of the gate here is we're back at front. You see, here's NC State. Now, the thing you got to look for with North Carolina State is they're going to run most of the runs that I've seen here. Most are off left tackle. That's where their All-American left tackle, Anthony Belton, is. In that regard, to me, a big who's going to be big this coming weekend. It's going to be Tyree West once again. We need Tyree West, a guy who come on in the bowl game, a guy who played, I would say was the defensive player of the game last week against Chattanooga. That's going to be his side, okay? Tyree West is up against an All-American left tackle in Anthony Belton. How does that matchup go for each? Now, Belton, this is not against SEC competition. Now, but that's to take nothing away from him. This is a veteran NC State line, but Western Carolina had some success against them earlier on. North Carolina State did end up over 200 yards rushing for the game, but Western Carolina had 9 tackles for loss in this game. This is going to be Tyree West's side. Now, I know Tennessee rotates a lot of guys, so it'll be him, it'll be Dominic Bailey, your Elijah Simmons. Those guys will come in on that side. Bryson Eason as well. So they're going away from James Pierce for the most part in this. So as you see it here, Waters gets outside nothing. They snuffed that one out. It was not a fumble on that one. And we'll go through to now. We'll go to the 29-second mark here. So if we look again, now Concepcion is their slot guy. A lot of his stuff, at least in these highlights, is him going short or across the middle. Now, he does score a touchdown later on. They'll show here it's basically a shovel pass. He comes like it's on reverse. They hit him with just a little pitch, and he goes around and scores. That was inside the 10-yard line on it. Concepcion, he does the dirty work, and he's quick. He's hard to bring down, as you'll see later on in this as well. But Tennessee, they're going to have to account for Jordan Waters. They're going to have to account for Concepcion. And, based on a lot of this is going to depend on, you've got to have better than this right here. McCall has time, okay? But on this play, though, here you see, he overthrows. I don't know if it's miscommunication. They had that covered pretty well. The throw was not on target. And then Western Carolina takes it back. They get a touchdown a little bit later. Now we go to the 137 mark. I talked about Concepcion here again. And kind of where, as you see here again, McCall, he's got time. He flushes left a little bit. Here's Concepcion across the middle. There's 3 guys there, but none of them were on. Boo Carter, Boo or Christian Harrison, whomever's in. Now, Tennessee brought Boo Carter off the edge last week, so that's going to fall to either one of your linebackers or your safety is going to have to come up and shut that down. That's a tough task for either of those as well, and we're going to find out what Boo Carter's made of this weekend going against a very good player in Concepcion. But again, they used him off the edge some last week. You got to think they'll do that as well. And Christian Harrison's going to get tested as well. I think you'll start to see some separation between the two this weekend. It was said that Christian Harrison quietly played a solid game last week, and we didn't hear much of him in that game. And to me, that's a good thing as a defensive back, unless, most of the time a defensive back's either mentioned for knocking down a ball, an interception, or getting burned. The fact that he was not mentioned any means he was doing his job in coverage. Okay, let's go to 248 here again. Just looking at this play, this is what I talked about with Smothers here a little bit. So go to the 248 mark, and you can see he is very fast with the ball in his hands right here. Now, this is one where they went RPO off the right side. So they went predominantly left. But most of what NC State's doing, you see later on in this game, they start running inside a little bit more. But here, all the runs we've seen have been outside. So your linebackers are going to have to cover out in space. Your ends are going to have to do their job, whether it's James Pierce, whether it's Joshua Josephs, Caleb Herring, or whomever on that side. They're going to have to control that side. And, we've talked about it again. Tennessee's depth's going to have to come in because this is a veteran offensive line with NC State. Now, I want to look at the 328 mark here as well. It's a little bit, I'm just kind of going in order on this. So if I look at 328 right here, now you're going to see NC State lines up. They do a lot of motion. So they faked here, come back, and I'm not sure if that was the corner or the safety. They do a few of these plays because there's one with the tight end who from UConn, a lot of people wanted last year, where McCall kind of rolled out. The tight end was almost where that was. The two guys, they kind of converged on McCall. The tight end took off and he hit him for a bit of a gain. So you're going to have more or less a guy on the quarterback, and you can't have all of them leave it, because if you do, you're going to leave Concepcion, you're going to leave Jolie, or one of these guys wide open. And you've got to be disciplined if you're Tennessee in this secondary. And a big question mark this week coming in for me is still this secondary. They didn't get tested last week. They were solid in what they did. But there was a couple instances I brought up. It was with Jordan Matthews, and it was with I can't remember who the other one was at one point in the game. It may have been not your starters, but plays. Actually, I think it was McCoy. But the Chattanooga guys got behind Tennessee's corners. The Chattanooga quarterback underthrew it, but Tennessee's corners, they weren't looking. And it was lucky it was. With a quarterback like McCall, a better quarterback like him, with better accuracy, with better receivers, those are going to be pass interferences if you let them get out of hand. So you've got to watch that with them. There was a few stuffs here. Here's the 7. I won't go to the 7-15. This is the play I was talking about with the tight end here just a second ago. If you over pursue on this, here, that was after a long run. As you see, RPO fake, they go out. That linebacker right here lost his man. He lost his guy, number 6. I'm assuming that's a lineman. Could be a lineman. He lost the tight end. You cannot do that if you're the linebacker. And here you see Waters, not easy to bring down. He went through a lot of tackles. Smothers is more elusive. Waters, hard to bring down. So, looking at that, how does Tennessee stop it? Your line has got to do their job in this game. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing on that one. I think we've seen enough out of that. But, back to it as well. Looking at what NC State does, they like to run. They ran it 33 times for 204 last week. They threw it 40 times. And so they had 77 plays. Concepcion had 9 catches. Justin Jolie had 5 catches. Noah Rogers 3. Grimes 2. Terrell Anderson 2. Waters 1. So they only hit their tailback once out of the backfield. Now, could North Carolina State come up with some different things possibly? But here's something in that game as well. North Carolina State also had 3 fumbles, and they did not lose any of them. So that may be an area Tennessee could kind of cause some turnovers, because there was a couple moments on those highlights where they got a little bit of pressure on McCall, and he folded under it. The key in this game is going to be that defensive line getting the pressure on Grayson McCall. If you don't, he can sit back there and pick you apart. They do have a really good receiving core. They have a good tight end. This is an offense that if you give them time, they can burn you. Make no mistake about that. I picked 45-17. I'm sticking with it. And maybe that's overconfidence on my part in Tennessee's defense. But with as many guys as Tennessee plays on their defensive line, I think they'll overwhelm North Carolina State when it boils down to it. We're going to truly see what Keenan Pili means to this defense this week as well. We've not seen him really in meaningful. We saw him last year for like 7 snaps against Virginia in game 1, then he went out for the year. We saw him some last week, but not a whole lot. Arion Carter did not grade out good according to PFF. I know he had an over pursue on the first play of the game, but if he's not doing his job, does T-Lander get some action? He played pretty well last week. Jalen Smith, does he make a move? As he graded out well last week? I think it's probably going to be Pili and Carter, but T-Lander, you're going to see plenty of T-Lander as well. That secondary, though, Ricky Gibson did not play last week. He'll be in this week. If your 2 outside guys do their jobs, if they do their jobs, McCoy and Gibson, you're going to make life easier on your safeties. You're going to make your life easier on your nickel or your star, as they call it, as well. The key is going to be, how do you cover Concepcion? Though I say the key. The key is going to be the defensive line winning their battles. Your second key is, how do you cover Concepcion? He can get loose and run wild on you. He is a guy who can go a long way in beating you if you don't watch it. And I don't subscribe to the theory letting one guy beat me. I would make the other guys prove it over Concepcion if possible. But Boot Carter, Christian Harrison, they're going to have a big task ahead of them this week. I've seen this week about quotes and this and that. Tennessee. If you're coming into this game this week and you need a freaking quote to get you fired up, maybe you don't need to be playing. Okay? This is a neutral site game. It's in Charlotte. It's 2 top 25 teams, both good programs. It's going to be at night. It's going to be, the main ESPN crew. I think it's on ABC this week. If you need to get hyped, if you need a freaking quote to get you hyped for this game, maybe you need to keep your ass at the house this week. That's kind of where I'm going with it. I don't think anybody, probably on either team, needs any extra motivation this week. James Pierce Jr., homecoming in Charlotte. I expect him to ball out this week. I expect that he's gonna be on his game this week. I'm sticking with it, 45-17. There's potential problems NC State presents, but if your line makes Grayson McCall live hard, he'll make the mistakes. He's not faced this kind of competition before. I'm wrapping up on that one. 4:00 today. I'm gonna release a video as to why these neutral site games are important to Tennessee. People complain about them. I'm gonna release why they're important today, and then I'm gonna try to get in a habit of 4 videos per day. I'm gonna try. Don't hold me to it. I'm gonna try with that. I've got to amp it back up. I needed a little bit of time away a couple times recently. I'm all in. I'm all ready to rock and roll. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel. Last but most certainly not least, go Tennessee Volunteers.